My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is Wednesday, March 1st, 2017, and I'm near Stilwell, Oklahoma in Adair County to interview David Leatherwood as part of our Cowboys in Every County Oral History Project. Thank you, David, for sitting down and talking with us today. Let's begin by learning a little bit more about you. Could you tell me the year you were born and where you were born?
If I can remember. I was born in 1957, in Wichita, Kansas.
All right. And tell me a little bit about your parents.
Parents grew up here. They were both from here. Like a lot of people in the 50s, there wasn't any work here. So they kind of migrated to Wichita. And then I was probably 2 or so when they came back here. And they're native residents of Adair County and been here all their life and worked, and that's pretty well it, you know.
And what did your parents do for a living?
My dad, he had a country store. He worked for the city of Stilwell. He was a horse trader. No, I mean, you know, Dad he worked for wholesale tire people for several years. My mom spent 18 or 20 years working for DHS.
Okay.
And before that, she'd worked in the abstract business, and then later on got back in the abstract business.
And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I got a brother.
Okay.
And
when your parents moved back to the area, did you live in town or outside of town?
we always lived outside of town pretty well. We've always been pretty country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as you're growing up, kind of describe your house and the land for me.
We, I don't know, you know, when you're a kid, you don't pay a lot of attention to things, and my folks, they would move, we would sell a place and they'd buy a place, and you know, and now we've been here on this place since, I guess I was 12.
Okay.
And, you know, I grew up here basically all my grown life, and then in '82 I got to come back here to teach school, so I had a home to come to, I had land to come to. So, yeah, I don't know, we just always have been here.
Well, when you're a little man growing up, tell me a little bit about your chores.
Oh, you just typical farm chores, you know. You fed, you helped feed, my dad always was kind of in the horse business, and we didn't have a lot of cattle. I had cattle as I got about 14, and my dad wasn't big on cattle, but he always had brood mares, and he raised horses, and like I said, he was always he wasn't a horse trader, but I learned as I got older. When I was a kid, I'd take one and I might ride it for 2 years. You know, when you're 10 years old, well, you ride the hair off of them, and anybody in the world can ride them. And then I'd trade to my dad for a younger one, and he'd trade with me, and he'd sell that when I'd been riding, you know, for pretty good money to somebody because it was so broke. Well, then I'd start with another outlaw, and I'd ride it for a couple of years, and then I'd get tired. I said, well, let's trade again. Well, I did this till I was about 16, and it dawned on me, and I told him one day, I said, you know, Dad, I believe you cheat me every time we trade. And he kind of laughed, and he said, no, son, you cheat yourself. He said, you're the one that always wanted to trade. But anyway, like I said, we always had horses, and we had plenty of chores, you know, either fencing or, you know, something always went with it. And if we had 5 or 6, 7, 8, 10 colts a year, then we'd keep some of those and break them and mess with them. He always kind of dealt with some running bred horses. So we would try to get them ready to go to the tracks if they could run.
Really?
Yeah. And at that time, we thought they were the world's fastest race horses, and now we look back at it and they were, they were Leo bred horses, which now they're cow horses, you know. And
Where was the closest track to here you'd run them?
there were brush tracks in this country. Now, Salisaw was an official track.
Okay.
The AQHA recognized it as an official track at Blue Ribbon Downs, and that was big time if you went to Salisaw. But there was brush tracks in Tahlequah, and there were some just east of Stilwell, several tracks around. There was always brush tracks. So, yeah, I always enjoyed that. That's all I knew.
Well, where did you go to school when you were younger?
I went to school at Stilwell, and went to a country school outside of Stilwell at Zion, and then transferred to Stilwell about the 7th or 8th grade. Zion only goes through the 8th grade, but they didn't play football at that time at Zion. So I wanted to play football in junior high, so I went to Stilwell a little bit early, and was going to be an all-star football player. Didn't work out very good, but yeah. But I did, you know, I learned the game more that extra year or two I was there, but I didn't play all the way through high school.
Well, before you got to Stilwell, you were still at Zion. How far away is it from this property?
Now, we didn't live here then.
Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't like 2 miles from where we lived to Zion School.
How big of a facility was it?
Oh, I don't know. I think there was 3 or 4 teachers.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was, and now it's a big dependent school district. It's a big country school, K through 8.
Interesting.
It's a nice school.
Well, your dreams of football stardom
Yeah.
didn't go as you planned. When you were, starting in Stilwell in those 7th, 8th grade years, were there subjects you felt drawn to, stuff you were interested in?
Not really. I probably wasn't a very good student. I was a typical boy, and after my years of experience, I still tell people that they get mad at their sons and they'll say, they just don't make good grades. I said, hey, they're a boy. One of these days they might. But no, there wasn't anything. If it wasn't deer hunting or riding a horse or going to a rodeo, then I wasn't interested. That was. But yeah, there wasn't anything I was drawn to. As I got in high school, I got into ag, and that kind of, I guess, I knew that was the direction I had to go. Is the only thing I knew. So.
Well, tell me about your ag teacher in high school.
I had 2 ag teachers in high school, 3 really, and one of them is still with us. 2 of them have passed on. And they were a big influence on me. I didn't know where OSU, I didn't know where Stillwater was, I didn't care, stinking old honorary boy. And I got to be an officer in FFA probably my sophomore year. And we went to the state FFA convention, which at that time was at Stillwater. And I thought, man, there's a lot of people here, But anyway, those guys, and then as I learned, well, they went to school here, and ag's been, and I watched those guys, they didn't have money, but they were comfortable. They made a good living and they worked with kids and they were good ag guys. And in fact, I saw one of them this morning, the one that's still with us. He hollered at me this morning, and he's kind of a neighbor. And we visit, and I guess he's 70, I don't know, 77, 8, something like that. And works every day, just as hard as he ever did. And but yeah, they were a big influence on me. Those guys were.
Did you show anything?
Yeah, I did show.
Okay. What did you show?
Yeah, I showed pigs. I started showing pigs when I was little, and then kind of quit. And then when I got back in school, I got in high school, I showed some pigs. One year I even had a heifer. Like I said, my dad wasn't big on cattle, but I found a little heifer that was kind of a registered heifer, and I wanted her, and I wanted to show her, and he wasn't much for it, but I got the heifer and showed her, and I don't know, I've always been different. I've always, I like messing with the cattle, and like I said, my dad wasn't much on them. He says they'll tear up everything you got, and but that was just always kind of my thing. Later on, I got to where I bought a lot of pigs for the kids, and but I bought cattle too, and sheep and goats and swamp rats. If they wanted to show it, I'd go try to find it. So, but yeah, I showed, and I didn't show a bunch, and don't guess I ever made a nickel showing. But hey, I got out of school, so
yes. Yeah. Well, as you were progressing through high school, were you thinking that you wanted to attend college? No. I wanted out of school. I didn't want anything to do with school. And I would look, sometimes it would dawn on me, I remember we had a guy come into the ag building one day, and he was through Soil Conservation Service. And they told us, where I was probably a junior, maybe early in my senior year, and they said, if you guys want to go to school, we'll help you. If you intern with Soil Conservation, we'll help you pay for school. Well, I knew, my folks, they're going to have to work their tail off to get me through school. There wasn't a lot of financial aid. There wasn't a lot of scholarships, that sort of thing. So I really kind of thought about that, and then I thought, I don't want to go to school. I really wanted to go pipeline. And that was when Alaska had just kind of opened up, and there was really some good jobs there, which I didn't even know which direction Alaska was, but I knew the money was good. And that kind of fell through for me. I had an opportunity to go. There were some guys here that worked there, and they were going to take me with them, and that kind of fell apart. So I thought, well, I got to do something. So I went to school. What year did you graduate from Adair High School?
From Stilwell.
Oh, Stilwell.
In 75.
Okay. So 75, you're heading off to OSU right away?
That fall.
That
yes.
Fall?
Yeah.
All right.
In a 1970 model Datsun pickup.
It's funny how we remember that first car.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't my first one, but it was probably my most dependable one. Yeah. My folks kind of knew it could probably get to Stillwater and back, and that was my graduation present. And so I headed off to Stillwater in that little truck.
And when you got to town, tell me where you lived.
Well, I pledged Farmhouse when I went to Stillwater. There was a friend of mine, a neighbor that I'd grown up around, and a guy that, he was 3 or 4 years older than me, and I thought he hung the moon, and we were always pretty close. And I ran into him one night at a rodeo, and this was August. Yeah, I planned ahead. And so he says, are you going to go to college? And I said, I guess I am. My mom really wants me to. I'm not too fired up about it, but I guess I will. And he said, where are you going to stay? And I said, don't have a clue. I'm not even enrolled. No, I think I had went and enrolled like that week. And I said, I don't have a clue, wherever they put me. So he asked me, he said, have you ever thought about a fraternity house? And I said, what is that? I'm pretty country. And so he kind of explained it to me, these guys are about all ag majors, and which I knew I'd be an ag major, that I couldn't spell anything else. So, and he said, they're about all ag majors. And so I said, I'd be interested in that. I said, was you in there? And he said, yeah. And he named off 2 or 3 other guys from here that had been in Farmhouse. And I knew them, and I knew, they were pretty straight up, and you know, they were good guys. And I said, yeah, I'd be interested. He said, I'll make a phone call. So that next week I get a pledge card in the mail, and it says, sign this and send it back. So I do, and it gives me a list. It says, this is what you need to bring with you, and this is the day you need to be here. Well, I didn't know what a pledge was, but I learned pretty quick when I got there.
I bet you did.
And, you know, the Greek system in school is not, I've had former students that were in the Greek system. Some would ask me about it, and I'd tell them, I said, guys, I can't tell you. It's not for everybody. It depends on your personality. It depends on you, your goals. I didn't have any goals. So for me, it was really good. And, you know, I went to college because my mom wanted me to go. And she was going to make darn sure I went, whether I wanted to or not. And she'd never had a chance. You know, my folks, they didn't have a college education, and they were dead set. My mom especially was, you're going to college. And I said, Mom, let me go to NEO or to Connors, you know, one of these junior colleges. And I had a kind of a shot at a scholarship in Colorado at a junior college, rodeoing for them. And she said, no way. You're going to Stillwater. I don't know if she'd ever been to Stillwater. She said, you're going to OSU, and that's it. You're going to get an ag degree. So anyway, I would tell the guys that, you know, don't get in a fraternity or a Greek organization or something because of something I told you. I said, you have to do that on your own. It's not for everybody. But it was good for me.
Well, I bet it helped with the structure.
The structure, I don't know if you're familiar with Farmhouse, but now if your grades aren't good in Farmhouse, you don't get to stay there. You know, I mean, but the thing of it is, those guys help you. You know, I had some guys tutor me in different classes that in 10 minutes they could show me more things than the instructor could in class in a month, you know. So yeah, it was good for me, and I kept my grades up fairly decent.
Did you live in the house?
Yeah, I did. I lived in the house 2 or 3 years, and then I moved out kind of in the annex, and still, you know, took part in the membership stuff. And yeah, I wasn't real involved. I never was an officer or anything in the house, but I was pretty big on that because I knew what they'd done for me, you know, and I knew what it could do for some of those other guys if they wanted to do that, you know, if that was their thing.
Do you remember your house mother?
I remember to the T, but I was trying to think of her name. In fact, we really had 2 house mothers while I was there. Mom McVeigh was one of them, and I was trying to think of the first one's name. And I know kind of some of her kinfolks. She was from over around Okmulgee, and I can't remember her last name. And oh yeah, I remember them because now they didn't get on you, but now they would set you straight. And the older members would set you straight. You know, I enjoyed it. The friends that I made while I was there, you know, I still talk to several of them, and there's some guys here that were behind me, and we're still friends. And some guys that were older than me were still friends. The guy that asked me at the rodeo that night, you know, have you ever thought about this? Well, yeah, I may not see him but once a year, but when I do, now we visit, you know. We're still pretty good friends. But yeah, I enjoyed it. A lot of friendships, a lot of fellowship come out of there, you know. And
did you participate in the homecoming activities?
I did some, not a great deal. I wasn't one of those, we called them big men on campus guys, you know. I didn't run for the SGA or anything like that, you know. I enjoyed a lot of the activities, but you know, and always tried to go to the ball games, and I got involved with stuff like that. But yeah, I just didn't. I don't know. I said it took all my time to try to keep my grades up, and that's probably not true. There was, you know, extracurricular activities that.
There had to have been a little bit.
Oh yeah, there was, and I did. I was probably the only freshman in the history of Farmhouse that ever went, maybe to any farmhouse in the nation, that took their own coon dog with them to school. And I was a big hunter.
Really?
When I was in high school. And we hunted a lot here, and a lot of guys still do. I've kind of outgrown it. And it's not good for your family life if you're out all night. And but I took my dog to school with me, and there was a guy, and he's still there at Stillwater, and he meant the world to me. He kept my dog. He let me keep my dog at his house. Even most of the time fed my dog for me, you know. And I'd go get him and load up. 2 or 3 of the guys, those guys from Farmhouse, some of them had never been, so they got to loving it. And you know, we hunted quite a bit, you know, and it was close, and we just run out there by the lake and tree a few, and then go back, and it was enjoyable. It was kind of getting away, you know. It was kind of, there's not a lot you can do there in town. It's country, but now that's pretty country. You get to go tree a few. So,
What was your dog's name?
Duke, big black and tan dog. Yeah, he was a Christmas present. Yeah. So, but yeah, a guy named George Chenows, and he worked at A&M Feed Mill, and he may still work at A&M Feed Mill. I don't know, and I know George raises some pigs and some lambs and goats, and in fact, in the past years before I retired, I'd go back and I'd buy animals off of him for the kids, for show animals. And he still had dogs. He had dogs everywhere. He's a big hunter. And but George was always good to college students about helping them if they had a dog and they wanted to bring them. He always, you know, if he got word of it, he'd say, "Bring your dog to my house. I'll keep it for you." And he's been good to a lot of guys that went through there. So, you know, college towns are kind of rough, and you've figured that, you've learned that living there. And sometimes, I always said the businesses sometimes take advantage of the students, and they do in a way. But now he was one of those guys that he was glad you was there, and he wanted you to get an education, and wanted you to enjoy yourself while you was there. So that always meant a lot to me, you know. And and if I saw him right now, if he pulled up, we'd be laughing and visiting, you know. But anyway.
Well, you studied ag.
Yes.
What do you remember from your coursework or some of your professors?
I had some good professors. When I first got there, I was in animal science.
Okay.
And I'll make this statement. I tell people that I was an animal science pre-vet major, and then I switched to ag ed. And everybody says, "Well, why didn't you try to get in vet school?" And I said, you know, if all of us would have made veterinarians, there wouldn't have been any ag teachers. Because 9 out of 10 of us went to Stillwater. We're going to be a vet. You know, everybody wants to be a veterinarian. And to this day, you talk to kids in high school. Well, yeah, I want to go to vet school. And I'm thinking, well, you better bow up, you know. And anyway, at Farmhouse, I happened to get to room with one guy. I shared a room with him that was in vet school, and there was 5 other guys in vet school, you know. And after that year, I thought, I don't want anything to do with that, you know. I don't know if I was dedicated enough. but I did have some good instructors. I had some in the animal science department, and then in the ag ed. Of course, you know, I had some of those animal science guys in ag ed. You know, we took animal science, plant science, and seems like years of chemistry. I don't know if everybody had to take chemistry as many times as I did or not, but I had a guy call me a couple of years ago. He's a superintendent of a school, and he was an ag teacher, a year behind me. And he said, "Hey, I know you're not working." He said, "Would you come and sub for me and do a chemistry class?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "I know your certificate has chemistry on it." Because he said, "Mine does," and they do have. Back then, you had enough hours to certify in chemistry.
Wow.
And in biology, and I think it's, they call it natural science then. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Man, you don't want me." And he said, "I got to have a certified chemistry teacher." And he said, "Till I can find one for real." And I said, "You know, I can't spell chemistry." I said, "You know how many times?" But anyway, no, we laughed about it. And he said, "You can do it." And I said, "Yeah," but it was a pretty good drive. And I said, "I'm not going to drive there for 2 hours a day." I said, "You know better than that." I said, "I'd do it for you for free and for nothing. But," I said, "you find somebody a little closer to you than I am." He said, "Well, I knew you had chemistry on your certificate." And I thought, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I had a lot of those professors meant a lot to me. And you know, even my first semester, man, I had an English teacher, and he came in every morning. He had kind of long hair. He'd come from Nashville. And we had English 7:30. It was a 7:30 class. Well, I learned pretty quick. I may not be the smartest guy there, but I'm going to be there. They're going to have to run me off. And so I'd be there 7:30. I'd be there when he got there. And every morning he'd bring a can of Pepsi in with him, and he'd throw his cigarette down outside before he'd come in. And he sat in the middle of his desk with his legs crossed. And that's how he taught. The guy was a super good teacher. He taught English and made it interesting. And I'm sure he was a graduate assistant, but really a good teacher. And you know, I had a algebra teacher the same way. He came from McAllister, wore a denim jacket to class. You know, he was country as I was. He learned that I was a coon hunter, so you know, he went with me a time or two, and still give me a darn B in that class. And I thought, man, I've got it made now. I'll get an A out of this class. I'll take this guy hunting. Didn't work. He was pretty straight, you know. But anyway, yeah, I had some, and of course, a lot of my ag professors were, you know, they were career people that had been there forever. Dr. Noble, he was Animal Science 101. I mean, the first animal science class you take. And Dr. Bob was salt of the earth. I thought, well, you know, anybody knows animal science. He taught us things that I couldn't spell, you know, and as freshmen. And, you know, and I had professors like that. I enjoyed them. They were good. Some of them really stand out. Junior year or senior year, they offered an equine class. OSU hadn't offered an equine class in years. And that year they did, because they got a guy that came back that had taught ag, and he was trying to get his prerequisites out of the way to get into vet school to apply. And he had taught ag for about 5 years. Young guy, a good horseman. So they said, we'll make a deal with you. You teach this equine class while you're, you know, we'll help you with your prerequisites and tuition and all that. So Bob Story was his name. Bob taught equine class, probably one of the best classes I ever had. And I grew up either around or on or under a horse. And I thought I knew horses. But when Bob Story got started teaching us this class, and biggest bunch of thugs you ever saw in this class. It was, I mean, we were all Aggies, but Bob he made a big impression, and he did get in vet school. And last I heard, he was in California. He was still practicing in California. So, but yeah, Bob was a big influence on me, because he was an ag teacher first, and when he came into that class to teach, he had a little different persona about him. It was like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do, and he was. Bob would carry on with you, and he was kind of one of the bunch till it came time to do what we needed to do. Took us on a lot of field trips. We hardly ever went on field trips, but now Bob did. He took us places. We went to some horse farms that to this day I can tell you where we went, and some of the people we were around that we didn't know people had that much money. But Bob knew them. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Anyway, that was part of the professors. Of course, my ag ed professors, they were always good to us. They were hammering on us to be more professional and wear clean jeans anyway. And I think the big part of them were fairly proud of us after we got out and started teaching. There wasn't a lot of thugs in us. We all, kind of the bunch I graduated with, I saw some of them yesterday at Muskogee at the stock show, and we're all retired, but we all still show back up, and we volunteer, and we do this and we do that, and it's just something that's just kind of in your blood. You mess with those kids, and everybody asked me, so what are you doing over there? I said, hey, I get to come pester these kids all day. I said, I don't have any kids around to pester anymore, so come over here and I can aggravate them.
Did you have to do any student teaching?
Oh yeah.
Where'd you do your student teaching?
My partner and I, we had to pair up. We went in pairs, and we went to Springer. Have you been to Ardmore?
I've been through there a couple times.
Okay, just north of Ardmore, about 5, 6, 7 miles, there's a little community called Springer. It's right off I-35, and we went to Springer and stayed in a camper trailer on the school grounds for 12 weeks.
Wow.
No, 8 weeks. I think they do it 12 now. It seems like we did it 8. Best experience of my life. And take nothing away from the school and the instructors, but when they throw you out there and say, okay, boys, sink or swim, here's your class, see what you can do. And but it was a great experience. Student teaching it. I've told, no telling how many young people that going to school. They say, man, I'm confused. I don't think I can teach school. I don't think I want to. I said, do your student teaching and then figure that out. I said, it'll tell you. I got a neighbor, had a degree in ag ed, went to do his student teaching. He was there a week and he quit. He had them to change him out. He's an electrician. He got a degree. He told me, he said, after a week, I knew I couldn't put up with him. I couldn't do it. And he said, I've always took my hat off to those guys that could, but he said, I just couldn't, my nerves couldn't handle it. And of course, you can tell I'm not real nervous, so. But yeah, the student teaching was a good experience.
When you're on campus during the time you attended OSU, what was the climate like on campus?
It was good. The climate was good.
It's a different time politically.
Politically, the Iran deal. I think that's about the time the Shah got overthrown. And of course, we had a lot of foreign students, and there wasn't any protest. That's the wrong place. That campus was not. There wasn't any. I mean, today there might be, or there could be. But at that time in the 70s, people didn't tolerate things as good as they do now. And but it was quiet. The campus was always quiet. You didn't see any protest. I remember homecoming of about 76, I think. I can't remember for sure what year. The AGR house had 2 boys that got killed at homecoming, putting up the, of course they were down on the strip, their house was, and they were building decorations, and it just, man, that really, that bothered everybody. And of course, Farmhouse and AGR, they're, the 2 ag fraternities, and but we were probably the first ones there, and I've still got friends that were in the AGR house. To us, it was a joke, we had ag classes together and we just laughed about it. But when those boys got killed, it was a terrible deal, and it shocked the whole campus, And I even saw a deal last year, I think, on TV. They still have a memorial, and but the campus was quiet. It could be rowdy, that was when we had streakers night. Oh, hey, that was the deal. And I don't know, you probably don't have a clue.
You ever try it?
No, I didn't.
Not at all.
No.
Well, that's when the song "The Streak" was pretty popular.
Oh yeah, that's when Ray Stevens came out with that, and hey, it drew a crowd now. When you went to the strip, they said there was a lot of people there. I don't know, I never saw it, but anyway, I had a friend, and we get to class on Monday, and I said, "You have a good weekend?" He said, "No, it was always Thursday night before spring break. Streakers night was." And so we came back and we had this class together. And this guy wasn't a little guy. And we were talking about something, and he said, "Leatherwood, did you know I got thrown in jail?" And I said, "No, when?" He said, "Oh, before spring break when they had the Streakers night." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I got down there and I thought, I believe I can do that." And he said, "But it didn't dawn on me that a 240-pound guy in a pair of cowboy boots won't be that hard to catch."
It's very true.
And he said, so I was probably the first one they caught. But anyway, yeah, he was a pretty good sized guy. He wasn't a little fella. I was kind of wormy, but he was a big old boy. He thought he could get through the crowd. But yeah, I loved it. I loved the atmosphere and the campus, and I was like everybody else. I wanted to at least stretch it in 5 years. Mm-hmm. But my folks kind of had a different opinion of that. They thought I ought to get out in 4 years and maybe even get a job. Mm-hmm. So I tried that for about 30 years. So anyway.
Did you date much?
Oh, not a bunch. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I always say, like in high school, I don't know if I really, I wouldn't really have girlfriends. I had other things to do. And college was kind of that way. I went to some rodeos, college rodeos, and if I was going by myself, if some girl wanted to go, I'd say, hey, I'm going Pratt, Kansas. If you want to go, we'll go. You can go with me. But I dated a little, but not. I wasn't a big socialite. And we were always busy doing other things, hunting or going to a rodeo or something. Yeah.
Well, as you're getting closer to graduation, are you starting to think, all right, I need to start applying for some jobs here?
You know, I had a little issue with that. When, by the time I graduated, I had a friend there at Stillwater that kind of got me started and with steer wrestling. And in January or February of that year, before I graduated, I had been fortunate enough to buy a good horse, a bulldogging horse, at the IFR at the finals. And so I was really into that, trying to learn to steer wrestle. And when I graduated, my mom, all my life, had told me, you go to college, you get your degree, you can do whatever you want to. You know, well, I took that the wrong way. So I got a degree, and I had a good truck and a good horse, and I wanted to rodeo. Well, that worked for about a month, and after I got out of school, I hadn't even applied for a job. I didn't want a job. You know, hey, you know, I've got a good horse, what else can you ask for? I want to go to some rodeos. It's kind of the mentality of a lot of guys, you know. But anyway, so then I kind of got serious. I did apply for a job while I was doing my student teaching, and that fell through. My teaching partner, my student teaching partner, and I both applied for the same job, and it was on I won't apply if you don't. I said no, and this guy had a family. My teaching partner had a family, and it wasn't very far from his home, and I said, you go apply. You've got a family, I don't, and go get that job. And he said, I won't do it unless you apply. And he meant it. I mean, he's kind of bullheaded. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, you go get the job. And the guy, there was already a teacher there, and he wanted one of us. We'd grown up around him. And I said, you go get that job. He said, I'm not going to apply unless you do. Well, neither one of us got the job, which it worked out better for, you know how things go. But yeah, neither one of us got the job. But yeah, that was the only job I'd applied for. At that time, the majority, almost all the jobs open in Ag Ed were in western Oklahoma.
Wow.
So, I mean, you've been here today, and there's a lot of difference in the culture and in the agriculture between eastern and western Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm glad we got them both. I used to tell the guys in Farmhouse, they would talk, the wheat farmers, you know, you guys live over there in that brush. I said, yeah, but if we didn't raise these old calves, y'all wouldn't have anything to put on that wheat. Mm-hmm. You know, because there's a lot of cow-calf operations here, even in the trees and the brush. And but that was a lot of the job from western Oklahoma. And yeah, I could have went to western Oklahoma and got a job, but I really didn't want to. You know, I really wanted to stay at least on the eastern side of the state. I didn't care where it was at, but I wanted to stay on the eastern side of the state, and pretty well did.
What year did you graduate from OOHRP?
79.
79. Mm-hmm. Did your parents come up for graduation?
Oh yeah, the whole family. I was about basically the first person in my immediate family that had a college degree. And we called them outsiders that were married to, you know, an uncle or something that got one. But hey, I was the first one really on both sides of the family that had a college degree. So, oh yeah, there was, in fact, I even think they brought a van full. You know, my grandparents, they were there, and I mean, they were just all tickled to death that, you know, how hard I'd worked. They didn't have a clue. I cheated to get through school. But no, it was, I remember graduation. It was a good time. A lot of family there, and we enjoyed it. And then I told them, okay guys, y'all need to head home before it gets late, because we've got things to do.
I bet.
Yeah. we've got things to do. And,
So you're after going around rodeoing for a little bit, you're looking for a job in the eastern part?
I was looking for a job in the eastern part. I ended up going to Arkansas.
Okay.
Ended up, in fact, another guy that rodeoed, I had called him, and he was teaching ag in Arkansas.
Okay.
And he said, oh, there's, a lot of openings, and first school I called, I went and interviewed, and they hired me, and I wouldn't say it wasn't a big mistake, but it wasn't smart. I thought Western Oklahoma was different than it, but Arkansas was, the vocational system was set up different, and I stayed 1 year, and I was ready to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And and they were good to me. I had a good job, but it was just different. And but yeah, I came back to Oklahoma and taught. Went to Porter over in Wagner County, and loved it. Had a good job. And then I guess in '82, I lived in Porter, which is 30 miles from Tulsa. And one morning, a truck pulls up my front yard, and it's two of the guys that had taught me that were still teaching here. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, we got to go to Tulsa and pick some stuff up. I said, ride with us to Tulsa. So I got in the truck and went with them. And so on the way to Tulsa, they said, okay, we're going to have a job open, and we want you to come back and teach. And I looked, I said, are you guys sure? I mean, they both had me in class. And I think they probably both took turns paddling me. And I said, y'all sure? And they said, yeah, we want you to come back and teach. And I said, okay, let me think about it. And so I wooled it around a few days, and I thought, if I can go home, at least I know I can have land. And of course, where I was at Porter, you couldn't buy anything. You couldn't buy, I tried to buy 20 to 40 acres, and you couldn't buy anything at that time. The economy they were coal mining it, and nobody wanted to sell anything. So, and I even talked to the school board there. I loved my job there, and I said, guys, if I could just find a place to buy, I'd like to make this home. And they said, man, you just can't buy anything here. So I left and come back here in '82, and which glad I did, but it was different. You had students in class that called you by your first name, and when I got here, it really bothered me. And I had a friend that taught at another school that was the same way. He was teaching where he grew up, and I heard his students call him by his first name one day. And I said, man, does that bother you when they call you by your first name? He said, it did when I first went back there. But he said, if you think about it, Dave, it's all they know you by. He said, they've called you that all their life, and their folks call you that, and it's all they know you by. He said, it's not disrespect. And I thought, it's true. And in a lot of the students, if there was anybody around that looked kind of important, they'd call you Mr., And when you got in the truck, they'd say, hey, Dave, let's stop and get something to drink. But anyway, I enjoyed it here. I enjoyed getting to come home. And probably the worst thing is you do know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That it's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Well, tell me about the size of the ag program at Stilwell when you were there.
We, Stilwell has always had a bigger ag chapter. There was always at least 3 teachers, and we accommodated 200 to 220 FFA members. We always had like I said, a larger ag chapter. Probably, I know at one time Broken Arrow had probably the biggest chapter in the state, but we would be second behind them. Sometimes we would be right close to enrollment with Broken Arrow. And so, yeah, we always had a lot of students. And yeah, that deal's kind of, you know, it's like anything else. If you have a group, you've got 100 people, you've got 10 that work. Well, the ag program's the same way. We try to do different things with them, not just showing or not just judging or not just shop. Mr. Doyle, the guy that taught shop that I saw this morning, he was a great shop teacher. He was. I mean, we all knew he was crazy, but he was a great shop teacher. And he would take some of those boys that couldn't show or, you know, couldn't afford an animal or didn't want an animal, and he'd get them in that shop and he'd holler at them till they'd done it right, and he would teach them, you know, shop work. So it was diversified. With 3 teachers, we kind of diversified. In fact, I taught horticulture. Yeah, I was the flower guy. And
But that was a fun prep.
yeah, it was different for me. And but I did take some horticulture classes when I was in school, and we had a greenhouse when I was in high school. We had a horticulture teacher, and I really enjoyed it. I really did. You know, the kids got to see what they did. You know, hands-on. They started their plants and, you know, and transplanted them, and you know, it was good. It was good for me, and I think I still see some of the kids. Man, you remember those hanging baskets we grew? And of course I don't, but I tell them I do. But yeah, it was good, and I enjoyed the horticulture part. It's you know, it's like everything. It's a lot of work. People don't realize the hours. You know, they said, well, those school teachers have got it made at 3:30. They go home. I was hardly ever home before dark. You know, with the show animals and, you know, all that extracurricular stuff. But that was when I retired. I just got eligible to retire, and everybody said, are you going to retire? And I said, yeah. And they said, why? You're still young. I was 51 years old. And I said, because I'm tired. I'm tired of being gone. I'm tired of my fences being tore down. I'm tired, you know, I don't see my cows unless it's dark. And I said, I'm tired. And they don't realize the hours that go in. You know, it's like coaching. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, I got a friend that ropes with us that coaches, and he told me the other night, he said, man, and he was one of my students, he said, basketball's gonna be over with next week. I said, that's good. He said, we got another season done. And he looked at me and he said, you guys didn't have a season, did you? And I said, yeah, year round. Was either buying animals or showing animals or judging contests or, you know, something. I said, but it was pretty well 2 or 3 days a week that we was doing something after school. So.
Was there a topical area you like to teach in addition to horticulture?
Oh, I don't know. I stayed in the horticulture curriculum, teaching horticulture. Now, I did judge a few horse judging teams. Had some horse judging teams. Probably one of my favorite things, and I never was good at it, and I wasn't good at teaching them or coaching them, but we've got a granddaughter up there now as a freshman, and I told her, I said, let me tell you something. When you go in that ag building, if you'll learn to do one thing, it'll help you more than anything you ever did in your life. And she said, what's that? And I said, public speaking. Mm-hmm. Now, and it's so hard to get kids to do any public speaking. And, but you know, I was really big on that. And I wasn't good at helping them. I wasn't good. We had some speech teachers that were really good to help me help them, and, you know, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. That's why I was, you know, when I was in high school, Mr. Doyle, our shop teacher, he said, you're going to give a speech or I'm going to paddle you. I said, you better get your paddle out, because I'm not giving a speech, and I didn't. And he knew I'd take a paddle, and I took a bunch of them. But anyway, you know, he knew I wasn't bluffing. And I said, no, you just get your paddle out and wear me out. I was president of the FFA chapter. And he said, you need to do that. I said, no. And I've kicked myself 100 times because I wouldn't.
I think 4-H and FFA, they do a really good job today with helping the students with public speaking.
I don't know, and I get off on that tangent about public speaking, and you know, I would tell my students, I said, there's hardly any job in this world that you can get that you don't have to communicate with people. I said, so learn to communicate the right way, you know. And but yeah, I was big on public speaking. At times we had a lot of public speakers. There would be times we might take 2 or 3 to the speech contest. I remember times that we had to take a bus.
Wow.
You know, we would have 2 in each category, you know, and a parliamentary procedure team. I always loved the parliamentary procedure, you know. And everybody needs to know a little parliamentary. I get so aggravated now. I'll be in a meeting of, you know, some kind of board meeting or something, or, you know, and my wife may be with me, and I'll say, hey, they done that wrong. That's not Robert's Rules of Order. You know, they've done it wrong. And you know, and I wasn't you know, I wasn't an expert on it, but I learned that stuff, you know, and I tried to teach the kids that. It'll help you somewhere down the road. I don't know, I was a realist, you know. Take this stuff. I always said, you know, what I learned in algebra, I don't guess I've ever used it. But, you know, and I'd tell my class that. I said, but now you're going to learn some things you need to keep with you. And put it back of your mind somewhere. And one of these days you'll need it. And there may be some algebra you'll need. Depends on what you do. Now, as an ag teacher, I probably didn't use a lot of algebra. But I did use some chemistry, you know, at different times. And, but I don't know, like I said, I was kind of a realist. I said, okay, we need to sort it out. Do I need to keep this or do I not? And that's the way I tried to teach, you know. And of course, you know how kids are. They were like I was. And they were there, okay, whatever. And, but you really try to encourage them to, you know, hang on to this somewhere. But anyway, yeah, I love the public speaking and some of the extracurricular stuff we did. And I guess the showing, I mean, we've done so much of it, you know. And yesterday I went and helped, I volunteered at the stock show at Muskogee, and one of the guys said, you miss this that much? I said, nope. I miss the kids. But I said, I don't miss smelling goat manure and the dust out of the shavings, and you know, getting home at midnight and then taking the kids and their animals home. And I said, I don't miss that. But in fact, I told him, I said, in fact, I gotta go feed. But I enjoyed the stock shows. Went to a bunch of them.
Well, when you look back on your time teaching, are there any moments that really stick out in your mind that you remember? I mean, I'm sure it's a long time in the classroom.
I mean, yeah, I could write a book on those moments. I'd embarrass a lot of people that are grown now, probably, if I told things, but there was just, yeah, and I wouldn't even know where to start. You know, and I learned a long time ago, if you didn't laugh about a lot of that stuff, that it would eat you up. You know, kids are going to do things, and things are going to happen, and I mean, you know, yeah, I could tell stories for days and about things that have happened. But I tell you one thing, and this really hadn't got anything to do with what you asked me, but I had a lot of kids in class I was here 26 years, and had a lot of them. And when I retired at the banquet, FFA banquet, they let me talk a little bit, and they were sorry they did, but they let me get on the microphone, and they kind of had a little gathering for me, you know. Had some students that came in from Dallas and places like that that I hadn't seen, and I didn't know they were coming. So anyway, it was a nice deal, and I told them, I said, you know, I've been fortunate, I've been blessed to have a lot of good kids in school. I said, even if they weren't really good kids, to me they were good kids, you know. I said, I always said I like the ornery ones. They're up front, they're gonna tell you they're gonna do something, you know, and they do it, and you expect them to be ornery. But, you know, I like the ornery kids, I guess because I was, but had a lot of good kids in school and a lot of successful kids. And I sat there and I looked at those people that night and I said, and I see 2 or 3 of you that are veterinarians. You know, I see one of you that's a software person that's probably made 3 times more money than the veterinarians. I see, and I said, and I'm proud of you guys, but I said, I see 3 or 4 of you that work every day and maybe with a pair of rubber boots on, repairing an electric line or a sewer line. And I said, there's no difference. I'm proud of you guys that went to school and that's what you want to do, but I'm proud of these guys. They get up and go to work every day. You know, and they would do it for $8 an hour, but they work just as hard as anybody in the country. And you know, and I kind of meant, I did mean that. I didn't kind of mean it. You know, through the years I'd hear a lot of guys, well, you know, I got so and so, they went to medical school and they were one of my students. Well, who cares? You know, I got an old boy that digs a ditch every day, and he shows up every day and he goes home every night, and he takes care of his family. You know, and he's as successful as anybody that ever went to any kind of professional school. You know, and I was proud of those kids that done good for themselves, but I was proud of the kids that just had enough gumption to go to work and you know, take care of their families. You know, not drink it up or dope it up or whatever. They took care of their families. And so, you know, that was, to me, that didn't answer your question very good, but I had to say that because I've always kind of been that way.
What year did you retire?
In '08.
Wow.
Yeah. So, would that been 2 years ago?
I bet it feels like that.
Yeah, it really has flown by. It has flown by. And
well, I hear retirement isn't really retirement.
oh no. A guy asked me this morning. He said, "Man, how's retirement?" I said, "It's a great life. It just don't pay very good." I said, "I don't know. I don't know what retirement is. Never will. I don't want to. You know, one of these days, if my wife ever gets to retire, we might, you know, slow down and do a little more things like retired people ought to. But I, you know, I try to stay busy. Now, I stay busy playing a lot. It's not all work. I play a lot. You can see we rope a bunch, and we try to rope at least 3 nights a week, especially if the weather's pretty.
Well, I was going to ask you about
And,
your landmark out front in
yeah.
your yard. You have a roping arena in your yard.
Yeah, I mean, we got it handy. So
How long has that been there?
since 1982 when I moved back here.
Wow.
I built that right after I moved back here. And it's been remodeled and reworked, and but yeah, it was 82 when I built that, the original arena. And so yeah, we play. You know, it's not all hard work. That's, some of the guys get on me, said, "We can't ever get a hold of you." I said, "Well, I don't carry my phone when I go in the arena. I'm afraid it'll fall out of my pocket." So yeah, I'm hard to get a hold of. And we do some pig hunting and wild pig hunting. I enjoy that. Wife and I, we're pretty bad about we've got a Harley or two. We're pretty bad about riding bikes in the summer. Now, this kind of weather, we're out. She's a fair weather rider, so but we do ride quite a bit.
How'd you meet your wife?
I don't know. I've just known her, you know. She worked here in town, and yeah, we've just known each other forever. And but she still works. She works at the school. She's a speech pathologist.
Okay.
And works for the school system. I think that's the way you say it. She's always on me because I can't pronounce it very good, but no, she loves her job. She works with the little kids, and she loves it. She loves those little kids. And you know, the schools don't pay a lot, but she's off in the summer, and she's off. And when I was teaching, she was off during the holidays and the breaks. We had the same breaks, so it's good.
And how many kids do you have?
We have three. We have three boys. And two older boys are in the construction business, and the youngest one is in the natural gas business. He works for a pipeline company out of Ponca City. And but anyway, they're scattered out. So it's just basically me and her around here most of the time, and that dog that keeps hitting the back door. Yeah. She'll be mad forever. Yeah. We're in her house.
Yes, we are. You'll have to love on her later.
Oh, if I let her in, you'd think love on her. She'd wear you out. She thinks everybody loves her. But, you know.
Well, looking back on your time at OSU, I know it meant a lot to your mom to attend school. How did earning your degree impact your life?
Oh, at one time, Dr. John Goodwin taught Ag Econ, and I had his class, probably the toughest class I had at OSU. He was probably the smartest man I ever was around, and at one time, he showed us on the board in the classroom the difference of making a living with a degree and without a degree as far as money goes. And most people have seen those comparisons, but I never will forget Dr. Goodwin going through that with us. And I'm thinking, well, Doc, you're the only person that can keep me from getting a degree because I can't get through your class. But no, he was really a good teacher. Wrote his own book. So, you know, he was intelligent in Ag Econ. And he was pretty intelligent about a lot of things, Dr. Goodwin. I got to know him pretty good. In fact, I'd take him strawberries. You know, we're the strawberry capital. And so I'm thinking, you know, I'm get through this class pretty good. And one day he stopped me after class. He knew the third day of class, when you went in Dr. Goodwin's, whatever section you was in, and there would be 40 of us probably per section, he knew everybody in there by their name and where they were from. I mean, that was the kind of intelligence he had. So one day after class, he stops me and he says, Mr. Leatherwood. And I thought, oh, because you didn't want him to corner you, you know, because he'd just eat you alive. And I stopped and I said, yeah, Doc. And he said, how's the strawberry crop, Stilwell? Well, I didn't know he knew people here, you know. And I said, I don't know, Doc. I hadn't been home in a while, but I guess it'd probably be all right. They hadn't had any late freezes, so it should be okay. And you know, I said, man, Doc, you like those strawberries? You ever had Stilwell strawberries? He said, oh, I love them. I said, would you want some? He said, my wife would love to have some. I'll go straight back to Farmhouse. I called my mom. And at that time, my mom, like I said, she worked DHS, and sometimes she'd be in Tulsa. And I said, Mom, can you get me a couple of crates of strawberries, or a couple of flats, and meet me in Tulsa? And she said, yeah, day after tomorrow, I can have them. And I said, okay. So anyway, she gets them and meets me in Tulsa. Well, of course, I take them straight to Doc Goodwin's house, you know. I'm gonna get my grade up.
You gotta do what you can.
That's right. You got to get by. I've tried to teach that to a lot of kids. Got in trouble for it too, but anyway, I took Dr. Goodwin some strawberries, and come to find, and then when I did, he told me he had some friends here, and you know, and he said I hadn't talked to him in a while, and I knew the same people, you know, and of course, and he was really a good guy, really intelligent. I think he ended his career up at the University of Arkansas. And in fact, I went by there to see him one day. It'd been 25 years since and I said, I know you always knew everybody in your class. Do you remember me? And he said, give me a name. And I told him my last name, and he said, Stilwell, America, right? The guy
That's pretty good.
Oh, the guy was intelligent. He was. And, but anyway, yeah, it didn't help my grade a lot, but yeah, got through it.
Do you find that there are a lot of alums from OSU in this part of the state?
There's not a lot. There's several, you know, of course your ag teachers, almost all of them will be. Your extension people, they will be. We have a few outlaws that drift over the line that come out of Arkansas. Not many, because Arkansas pays so much better than Oklahoma.
Right.
So most of them now stay in Arkansas. And but the ag people here, about everybody went to OSU. You know, whether they were an ag teacher or extension and you know, I've got some friends just with degrees that went to Stillwater to get them. And some of them took 6 or 7 years to get them. So they just wanted to go to Stillwater. Everybody likes going to Stillwater. You know, it's I got some friends that they're big OU fans, football fans. You know, I mean, they eat, breathe, and sleep it. And finally one day they admitted, and they said, you know how big OU fans we are, but said if we can pick somewhere to go, we want to go to Stillwater. And I said, yeah. I said everybody loves Stillwater. You know, I used to just like walking around campus. I did. I mean, you did it every day, but I loved walking around campus and, you know, just seeing different people. That, to me, that was of course, you know, growing up here, it was a big change, but yeah, I loved the campus.
Well, you know, you mentioned growing up here, you know, I drove into Stilwell today, and the town, you know, it's pretty busy. I was wondering how it's changed through the years, though.
It hasn't. Oh, yeah, it has a little, but in a way it hasn't changed. It's, you know, when I grew up, we had Stilwell Foods. I don't know if you went by the Swans. There's a big, they basically make the pastries, the pies, the cobblers for Swans. And at one time that was Stilwell Foods. It's probably the biggest employer of workers here. And it was started here and started by a local family in probably in the 30s or 40s. And they really kind of started, I think, processing strawberries. And anyway, Flowers Industry had bought it, and now it's Schwann's, and that's grown a bunch, but it's still, we call it the cannon factory. That's what it was, you know. And I always said they were responsible for me going to college. That Stilwell Foods had a lot to do with me going to college. They worked me like a dog. And I didn't have a clue, and my mom had worked for the man that was the president of Stilwell Foods when I was a baby. And when I got to be a senior in high school, I wanted a part-time job, and they wasn't hiring anybody. So I tell my folks that night, and so after a while, my mom comes back in the living room where Dad and I were, and she says, if you really want to work up there, go back up there tomorrow and talk to Paul. Well, he was kind of the plant manager. And I said, Mom, I talked to him today. They're not hiring. And she said, well, go back and see him tomorrow. So I go back the next day, and this guy gets up and shakes my hand, and he said, Dave, I didn't even recognize you. And he said, where do you want to work? And I said, well, I'd like to work out front unloading trucks, you know, so I won't be in this plant all the time. And I said, I'd like to unload trucks. And he looked at his assistant, and he said, take him out there and put him on. Hey, if it was Saturday, Sunday evenings, if there was trucks to unload, guess who got called? And I never will forget my senior year, this president pulls we had an FFA float in the Strawberry Festival parade. And well, the president always drove and pulled the float. I had to work. So I told my ag teachers, I said, man, I got to work. I can't be here. So I go into the plant. They tell me what to do the day before. Come and grease these conveyors. Where we're outside, we run a lot of greens and beans and potatoes and unloaded the trucks. And get everything greased, get everything right. So I get there that morning and I start. And finally, at 10:30, 11 o'clock, a guy comes out of the plant that I didn't even know. And he walks out there and he says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm greasing all these conveyors. And he said, why? I said, because I was told to do that. And he said, get yourself out of here. He said, people don't work here on Strawberry Festival Day. Because that was kind of how it all started. And he said, you go to town with everybody else. And I said, well, I'm already here. And he said, get out of here. Go on. So I left. You know, I got the rest of the day off, and I was tickled. And after I was grown, I was back here teaching. And one night, I was over at my folks, and we were talking about something, and my mom, she kind of laughs, and she said, you never did know that story, did you? And I said, what? I was talking about working at Stilwell Foods. And she said, the day they wouldn't hire you, didn't have any jobs, she said, I called Mr. Todd, which was the president of Stilwell Foods, and she had worked for him in his office. She said, I told him, said, hey, Dave's a senior, and I want him to go to college, and he don't want to go. He said, you send him back up here tomorrow, he'll be ready to go. Well, and I knew after I got grown that Mr. Todd had an ag ed degree from OSU, and but he'd end up running this plant, which worked out a lot better for him, I'm sure. But anyway, and I don't know if I ever saw him after I got grown, you know, to thank him. And I don't know if I would have thanked him, because now they worked me like a dog. But they made sure I didn't want any more of that Stilwell Foods deal. I was ready to go to college. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I didn't want to work there the rest of my life, you know. And they had good jobs. They had some good jobs. But I didn't have one of them. You know, I worked. And I wasn't the only one. There was a crew of us. And I thought, man, I got to get out of here. I'm going to go get me a degree, get me an education. But yeah, my mom always laughed about that. She said, we kind of set you up.
So there's still a major industry here in town.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's called Schwann's. I don't know. I don't even know now how they label their stuff, but a lot of the pre-cooked, pre-made pies, bakery pies, a lot of that's made right here. Mrs. Smith's, I think, is a brand that they still use. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of it's made here.
Is the Strawberry Festival still a big deal?
Yeah, it's still 60, I hate to say how long it's been, I can't remember for sure. My mom was the first Strawberry Festival queen.
Really?
Yeah, she was. She was 9 years old. And 40, whenever they started having it, I hate to, but you know, yeah. And they said, your mom was a beauty queen. I said, nope, they had to pick strawberries before they could be queen. My mom picked strawberries. And the growers nominated them.
Wow.
And so she picked, for one grower, and they did it by crowd applause the day of the festival. And so yeah, she was the first queen. And so for her sake, I'm gonna say it's been 20 years. Yeah, but and really still, if the weather's good, it's the second Saturday in May every year. And if the weather's good and it's not stormy or rainy, I'll draw 15 to 30,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, that little town is full of people. And that big rodeo every year, it's kind of tradition, the festival rodeo. And it draws a lot of people from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to buy strawberries that day because they're kind of hard to get. But they still, in fact, the strawberry thing has kind of come back. There's more acres now of strawberries than there has been in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, it's, when I was a kid, a lot of people grew strawberries. I mean, when you're 9 years old, you pick strawberries, you haul hay, you pick up walnuts, to make any extra money. And so we could pick strawberries about anywhere if you didn't get run out of the patch for eating them. But you picked, there was a lot of growers, and I know even before that there was more growers. These old, if you went to town, you saw some of them, these old rocky hillsides. Mm-hmm. The topsoil is so shallow, but there's something about the composition of this ground. Now, strawberries prosper in it, and they do good. And part of it is it's so rocky that the strawberries don't lay in the soil itself. I can take you to a strawberry patch and it's solid rocks. You'd think, good grief, nothing grow in that. But the strawberries, when they lay out, they're not in the soil or in the dirt. It's technically it's soil, so they don't rot. They're in rocks.
Interesting.
And the composition of this ground is really good. It's conducive to growing strawberries. And the hillsides with the southern exposure, sunlight, and they've kind of made a comeback. They're a pretty fairly profitable crop if nature's good and it doesn't freeze late and kill them. And they're a pretty good crop. I wished I had 5 acres of them. But no, they're good. There's several guys up. Mr. Doyle, my former ag teacher, he grows several strawberries. He's got 2 or 3 patches of them. They rotate them around. They don't last long, 2 or 3 years, and then have to start new ones. But he grows quite a few strawberries.
Your courthouse is also getting a facelift.
Oh, yeah, and it's about time. In fact, they're building the feature is going to be the bandstand out front. That you may have saw that formed up. Mm-hmm. There used to be a little kind of a block, looked like a gazebo, but it was big, concrete floor, was the bandstand. That caused quite a stir. They tore it down, the commissioners did. Well, you saw the addition and the old part of the courthouse is going through. We passed a tax to help do that. The county did, and it needed to be done. That poor old courthouse leaked, the basements leaked forever, and it needed to be renovated. And so they built the new annex or the new part there, and so then they decided they'd build a new bandstand. I guess, I'm not a big Facebook person, but I got some friends that look at it, and they said there was people ranting like crazy over this bandstand. And I thought, why do we want this old ratty bandstand out? That courthouse is going to look pretty nice when they get done with it. I'm proud of it. Mm-hmm. And I think, it needed to be done. And so I was telling my mom about it the other night. She gave me a picture out of the Muskogee paper. And in front of that old bandstand, there was a wood platform set up, and there was some kids square dancing on it. I was one of them. I was 9 years old. And she said, "You remember that?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I remember those boards were slick. It had rained. It always rained Strawberry Festival." And I said, "Yeah, it's so slick. We was all afraid we was going to fall down." And I said, "That was a couple, 3 years ago." She said, "Yeah, it was. 50. And but she still had that article out of the Muskogee paper. You know. She said, "I'll give that to you." I said,
She still live in town?
They live across the highway.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, they still live across the highway. Been there forever. Her and Dad, they're hanging in there. They don't get around very good anymore, but they live by themselves. Of course, we're not very far. But they, of course, you know, you learn the more they get more independent. You know, your parents do, the older they get. I mean, they can be sick and you know, oh, we're fine. You know, you didn't need to come over here. We're fine. But bless your hearts. We don't want to be a burden to y'all, you know.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know we'll all, if we live long enough, we'll all be that way too, you know. We don't want to burden our kids.
Well, you know, we notice when we speak to alums that they have this loyalty to OSU and the area. What do you think sparks such loyalty?
I think it's honestly, I think it's the camaraderie. It's the memories that most people make while they were at Stillwater. You know, to me, to this day, if somebody said, "Will you ride with me to Stillwater?" I said, "Let me get my hat." You know, I mean, yeah, I'll go to Stillwater anytime. I don't care if we drive up there and eat, you know. And but I think a lot of it is the memories. I'm probably getting to the point where I can't remember a lot. But I think that sparks a lot of the camaraderie and the memories. And a buddy of mine, another ag teacher, a few years ago, we were going through Stillwater, going somewhere. And we were going up Perkins Road. All the new eating establishments, I mean, there's stuff everywhere. Well, you know, when we were there, that wasn't there. There was a putt-putt mini golf course out there. And this guy, he says, "Man, Dave, this old town's," said, "this town's really grown." And I looked at him and I said, "You know, it was 25 years ago when we was here. It should have grown. If it hadn't have, it had dried up." And he kind of looked funny and he said, "Yeah, you're right. You got a point." He said, "It has been that long." I said, "Yeah." And this has been several years ago. I said, "It's supposed to have grown." And but it's still, you know, it's kind of still home. Mm-hmm. And I don't get back up there very much. I don't. I'm ashamed of myself for not going anymore. And now when I was teaching, I was there quite a bit. Still got friends that work there, but you know, since I retired, I'm not back up there. And my son calls me. The one at Ponca City, he'll call and say, "Man, I'm headed to Stillwater, Dad." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "You little loser." And he'll drive down there, you know, to eat or something. He's always going to Stillwater. He loves it. He's like everybody. You know, it's a big, small town.
Yeah.
And I, you know, and like I said, the campus, I love the campus. I always thought that was the prettiest campus. You know, everything was so manicured and so neat, and you know, it just, I think that's a lot of it. The pride, the pride that people have of going to school there was, you know, it was just usually a good experience for them. And especially if you was lucky enough to get a degree while you was there. I went there and even ended up with a degree. I got a lot of education and even got a degree out of it. I think it's the way a lot of us were.
It's still happening today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I think that's most of the pride You know, and you think about those days. I don't care if you're 100. Those were good days for you. You know, we all cherish or remember good things and good times and all that and good days, and that's, you know. So if you went to school at Stillwater, you remember that. That's a sweet spot for you. I tell my son, I said, that's the motherland. You know, if you're going to Stillwater, that's the motherland right there. He'll just laugh. He said, you're right. But yeah, and it's grown so much. But it's still, you know, it's still a special place to everybody that went to school there, I think.
Well, we've kind of did this quick fast forward through your life. What have we missed? Anything else you want to add before we close out today?
I don't guess. I appreciate the opportunity. Not that you learned anything from me, and but I appreciate the opportunity to, at least, because I still have good memories, you know, and that was just a special time in my life. It had to be, you know, as far as better in my life, you know, my education and better in my life. It was you know, I know, of course, you know, you always say your parents were a lot smarter than you thought they were, so, but yeah, I think if I'd have known when I was in high school what I know now, I might have tried a little harder. I had one counselor that says, "You're not serious about going to college, are you?" I said, "No, but my mom's really serious about me going." And I always made decent grades, but I didn't hurt myself. You know, I didn't go out of my way to make good grades. Like I said, I was a boy. And I didn't want to, and I might could have made better grades than some of them, but I didn't want to show off if I could have. But no, I appreciate the opportunity, and it just, like you said, brings up memories. You can tell by the way I rambled around about it. I'm sure I ramble, and I'm not a good interviewee because I mumble. My wife's always on me about my mumbling, and I know I mumble a lot.
Well, we appreciate you, and we thank you for your time today.
Well, I appreciate you, and maybe it was worth something. Hope it's worth your drive.
Oh, it was great.